You're listening to the Born to Kick Arse podcast with Matt Tomasi and can be found at borntokickarse.com/episode 32.
Welcome to the Born to Kick Arse podcast, where you're introduced to the most fascinating people on the planet. Learn the ingredients of greatness that you can apply to your life. And now your host, Matthew Tomasi.
Today's podcast is brought to you by audible.com. Get a free audiobook of your choice and a 30-day free trial by visiting borntokickarse.com/audible. There's over 180,000 titles to choose from for your iPhone, Android, Kindle or MP3 player. To download your free audiobook today, go to borntokickarse.com/audible. Again, that's borntokickarse.com/audible for your free audiobook. Grahak Cunningham was the winner of the 3,100-mile Self-Transcendence race in 2012. This race is the longest certified race in the world, where competitors run 5,649 laps around an 883-metre city block in Queens, New York. Runners have 52 days to complete the distance. To achieve this, the minimum distance to run each day between the hours of 6 a.m. and midnight is just under 100 kilometres. Grahak has completed this race on 4 out of 5 occasions and goes into detail around the physical and mental aspects, as well as the spiritual progression attained on this journey of self-transcendence. At times, the audio quality in this episode is a little ordinary, but I do encourage you to stick with it. Enjoy the interview. Grahak Cunningham, welcome to the Born to Kick Arse podcast.
Hi Matt, thanks for having me.
Now, you have done an incredible, some incredible running achievements, which I really want to talk about. Most notably, the 3,100 Self-Transcendence race. But before we get into that, can you give us a bit of a background on yourself? Where you grew up, and were you always a runner growing up as a kid?
No, I wasn't. So I grew up in a country town called Bustleton, which is most well known for its surfing. I liked surfing, played a lot of AFL footy when I was younger, and tennis, squash. Just loved sports really, but running wasn't one of them. I really disliked it. So I think because when I was 8 or 9 years old, we had an 8-kilometre beach run, which is pretty young to be running that sort of distances on soft sand, and that turned me off a bit. I like the sprinting and sports carnival and that sort of thing, but that was about it. That was all my running. The rest was really just sports in my younger life. So I wasn't always a runner, that's for sure.
And at what sort of age were you when you started to get into running? Maybe sort of starting off with fun runs, or did you sort of get into sort of fun runs and marathons?
Yeah, when I was about 19, I started winning my first fun run. No, I was probably 18, winning my first fun run. Again, it was a soft sand run. I don't know what I was thinking about it. I was exhausted afterwards and didn't really enjoy it, but then I thought, I've got to train and do a bit better in these sort of things. Invested in some running gear, and once you stop wearing your board shorts and your t-shirts in running events, I think you can start calling yourself a runner. So got some good shoes and trained and that sort of thing, and did my first marathon in '99. That was the New York marathon.
All right, yeah, that would have been good.
Yeah, that was great. Thousands of people and the throbbing crowd just pushing you along to the finish. It was really half being my first one and not really knowing what to expect, but finished, and after that I was pretty booked and tried to do a few marathons every year, and and worked out that I could do an ultra marathon. Tried that the day after I'd done a marathon and thought, oh, gee, that was almost like a multi-day run. And I guess a little bit interested in that field.
So with your first ultra, how far was that?
It was 75 Ks.
So that was straight after a marathon?
Yeah, I did a marathon the day before, and then the 75K was the next day. So I was trained up for the marathon and finished that. I was pretty sore, but once I started that 75K, I warmed up a bit and just kept pushing myself along and managed to finish. And then the next day after that, I woke up and thought, oh, if I had to, I could probably do something like that again.
Yeah. Well, do you remember the soreness? Were you really sore straight after that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I was really sore. That was my first ultra and just a total novice, and just hobbled along. You know how you are after a big race sometimes the next day. Yeah, I think once you get your legs moving, some of that soreness disappears.
So what sort of led you on to, were you regularly doing ultras after that?
No, that was 2005, and that was my first ultra. I think I did the same race again in 2006, and that was it. Yeah. And then I jumped into the multi-day races.
So the big one, the Self-Transcendence.
Yeah, the big one.
Before we get into that, when did you first become aware of this race? And can you tell us about the race itself? I think it's the longest certified race in the world. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's the longest certified foot race in the world. It's held annually in New York. It was started by Sri Chinmoy, who loved running, and many of your listeners have probably heard of a lot of these running races that are held around the world, especially like long distance running, where you're really forced to dive a bit deeper and try and transcend your limitations and your difficulties and that sort of thing. So he started this race in 1997, and I first heard about it, I think, in maybe 2003, and there was an Australian in it then, a Canberra runner, and I was over in New York and watched him finish, and it kind of struck a chord with me then. I don't know why. I just thought to myself, I've really got to do this race sometime or other. And I've done marathons then, and I've never tried an ultra. I really saw the way Tim Bolton, who's the runner who finished, I saw the way he'd gone. I'd followed him online and just seen the ups and downs he'd gone through, and just seeing him cross the finish line was really, really inspiring. And, it was in the back of my mind for a few years after that.
Now, at this point in your life, so this was sort of early 2000s, mid 2000s, around there?
Yeah.
Like at this point in your life, were you, like the very nature of this run is, for me, it's a spiritual undertaking. You know, you've got the physical aspect, with all the physical niggles and injuries that you need to manage, and we can get into that. And then you've got all the mental battles, which are an ongoing thing. But even beyond that, you've got the spiritual side of it, which really is what this race is about. When you sort of first became aware of the race itself, were you sort of fairly spiritually inclined or a spiritual type person anyway?
Yeah, I was. So, when I was at high school, I got into meditation. My mum had done a bit. There was guided visualization tapes floating around, and I tried them. And then I knew there was something really good about meditation. So when I was at uni, I tried to, I guess I was seeking a bit and trying to find some inner peace, and looking at different Eastern philosophies and that, and then eventually found something that fitted nicely with me, and I really like the way Sri Chinmoy used sports as a vehicle for improving yourself, and how he combined the physical and the spiritual, and that was what really got me interested. And he was a really good sportsman himself. So I guess I was always interested in sports, and I got interested in meditation, and then I was really lucky that the style that Sri Chinmoy's path, or the style of meditation I like, it really combines them both. And, so running was really relevant to, or analogous to our regular lives. You set yourself a goal, and you strive to get there. You're trying to overcome your doubts and worries and so forth. And then when you finish, you think, oh, how can I be better at that, or how can I improve? How can I be faster or go further? And so you're always trying to go beyond what you've done. And I really like that aspect of running. And I think it's the same when you're trying to improve yourself. You think, oh, how can I be a better person? How can I conquer this negativity I've got?
So were you like a devotee of Sri Chinmoy before you'd actually started your first Self-Transcendence race? Or was it sort of happening in parallel?
No, I was before, yeah. So I became a devotee of Sri Chinmoy in '97. That's when I got into running, really, because he really encouraged everyone to run. So that was what got me going. That's why I entered the first New York Marathon and things like that.
So was he a runner himself?
Yeah, he was a runner. He did a lot of marathons. He was a sprinter in his youth, and then in his more senior years, he started doing marathons and ultra marathons.
Can you give us like a bit of a rundown on the approach to meditation that, through Sri Chinmoy's teachings? Do you sort of meditate? Do you sort of meditate, do sitting meditation, walking meditation, running meditation? Can you maybe give us an insight into that?
Sure. Well, I guess the best way is just to go about how I start my day. So I try and get up at before 6 every morning, and then freshen up in fresh clothes, and sit down and meditate for half an hour. And do an open eye style of meditation. You're really trying to, when you meditate, you're trying to silence your mind and dive a bit deeper into your heart. So our minds are pretty bothersome 24/7, but when you meditate, you're trying to really slow the volume of thoughts, and you get a lot of energy from doing that, and a lot of peace and joy and so forth. And that's how I start my day every day, and then I usually do some exercise after that, half hour of meditation, and it's like it stays with you while you're trying to whatever, cycle or run or swim. You can really combine the two. So I found that by doing my formal meditation in the mornings, gave me the skill to do it while I'm doing sports. And, I think everybody's meditated at some time or other. When you've been out running, you look at the sky or the sunset or the sunrise or something like that, and you're not really analysing things, you're just experiencing something vast or beautiful and identifying with that. And the more you formally meditate in front of your shrine, or in the mornings, the more moments like that you have, which is really nice.
And did you actually meet Sri Chinmoy?
Yeah, I met him many times. So when I started following this path in 1997, I'd go to New York twice a year and meet him there, and then try and see him around Christmas holidays and things like that. He's often travelling to different countries and get a bit of time off work. So
did I like I've heard of Sri Chinmoy and I've done a little bit of research on him, for this interview. Did he attain self-realization through running?
No, it's through meditation first and foremost. But he says there's no, I think spirituality used to be kind of neglect the body a little bit. Some people used to go into caves or hermitages or ashrams and you don't really look after yourself physically and you kind of shut yourself off a little bit from the outer world. But he really said that no, you have to take physical. It's a little bit like he often gives the analogy that the body's like a temple, and inside the temple the shrine. So that's our heart and the soul, if you like. So if you don't look after the temple, then the weather can come and damage the shrine. So if we're not healthy and physically active, then we get sick, we get lethargic, and it's difficult to get up in the morning and meditate and that sort of thing. So he really encouraged being that an integral part of your spiritual life is looking after the body in terms of your diet and your physical activity and things like that. He said all his students, I believe he said all his students have to run a marathon in this incarnation.
With the actual Self-Transcendence race, can anyone do it, or do you need to qualify to do it, or how do you actually get into it?
Yeah, so they have a number of ways that you can qualify. The main one is they run in April every year. They have a 6 and 10 day race, and there's a lot of competitors, maybe 100 odd or so. They go largely on the results from that. So, as well as fitting in with the idea of the race, I should have told the listeners, but you're given 52 days to finish, and you run from 6 a.m. to midnight every day. There's no prize money involved, and really not that many people have heard about the race. And so you have to be really interested in the idea that you're going to make a lot of progress in this race, but it's going to be extremely difficult for little, I guess, reward or recognition. So people have to, I guess, understand that they're going to be competing a lot with themselves, and if you're going to line up on the start line, it's not going to be easy. It's not a holiday in New York or anything like that. But yeah, so they largely go by results in those 6 and 10 day races, and if you average over 60 miles a day, about 100 k's a day in those races, then you kind of get looked at depending on who's applying or entering that year.
Now, when you've done this race 5 times, you've finished it 4 times, and you won it in 2012. The very first time you did this race, did Sri Chinmoy ask you or invite you to do the race?
Yeah, he did. So you remember I said in 2003 I'd seen it. I had it in the back of my mind that every time it was just too daunting, so I kind of shelved it. He's going to run 100 k's a day for 50 odd days, and I've seen the course. It's just a loop, an 888 metre loop around a school. And so every time I kind of think I'd love to do it, that was it. It was just a thought. And when I was with him somewhere, and he asked me if I'd done it before, if I'd done our world's longest race. That's what he said, and I thought he did, because I'd entered a 3K race that morning and done all right. I thought he was talking about that, and I said, yeah, I got second. And But then he asked me again a bit later, and I kind of thought, this really I should do it. So that got me a little bit more motivated, and started training from there.
So how do you actually train for this? Do you just try and log heaps and heaps of miles leading up to this?
Yeah, so my first one, my first race, which was in 2007, just being a rookie, I just tried to just run heaps of miles. So I started off running to work and back. That was giving me 25 k's a day, and then I'd come home and have a bit of rest, and then after a couple of weeks I thought I'd better do another run, and so I just go out for another 10k run after I got home. So then you're up around 150 k's, and then just on weekends go for really long runs, 6, 7, 8 hours. Just take my credit card, and I needed food, and just stop at a supermarket, fresh that way. Yeah, so you just run everywhere. I was running to work and back, running to meet friends. I was running to play tennis, or running to return DVDs to the shops. Just if friends going somewhere, so they can drop me off, and I'll run home. So yeah, just clocking heaps of miles really. I was sick of running before I even got to the start line, but I thought it probably had to be in the mix to have a chance of finishing.
This race, is it the same sort of month every year that it's on?
Yeah, they usually start in June. It starts on Father's Day in New York, every June. So, yeah, kind of early June it starts. And, it's a New York summer, so it can get really, really humid and hot. And it's part of the difficult side of it is just the weather. So it's really hard to run in that sort of weather.
It's around a block. How far did you say that each lap? You're sort of just doing laps of a block in the middle of suburbia. Is that right?
Yeah. So it's a school block. It's called Thomas Edison High School. The school at one end, and in the middle there's a baseball field, and then at the other end there's some playgrounds and handball courts. So that's the block you go around and around and around each day. So I know every crack of the course and where I need to lift my feet a bit higher, and you learn the names of some of the kids and the school janitors and that sort of thing. It's like your home for a couple of months. But all the runners, there's a special place in the runners' hearts, because that's where you go to achieve your dreams and try and conquer this immense distance and finish. And, for everyday people, probably doesn't look like much. It's a cement footpath, and it's in Queens. It's not a very affluent area of New York, and it's a really special place. And there's a lot of energy around that course. Sometimes I remember once a reporter came and interviewed a few runners and just thought he'd keep running for however long he could, and I think he did 55 or something days. He'd never run a marathon before, so he kind of picked up on how it is in a race. There's that energy, and then you just get pushed and pulled along.
Now, you said you sort of, you got to know the names of school kids and parents and janitors and stuff like that, during the course of the race. Did you ever sort of see any school kids who during the weeks, as the weeks would sort of tick along, did you ever sort of notice any of the kids, or were there sort of any kids that sort of stuck out to you that you sort of became aware of, that you could possibly see an interest in their eyes, that they could potentially toe the line of this race at some time, in the future? Yeah.
No, I didn't see any that were interested in running the race, but you do see some of them, it inspires them, and I think that's a nice thing with the teenagers. Most of them are kind of oblivious to like our teenagers here, they're oblivious to what's going on and that. But then you'd see sometimes some of the might be a TV crew come along and they'll interview the kids, and they're really always positive about it, and it's just great. I think it was 2007, my first race. There was a couple of kids that stood out. There was a young Muslim guy called Zihan. He'd come down and became really good friends with him. The race, come down and do a few laps and chat to you and tell you about his usual teenage problems and things like that. It was a really nice kid. And then there was another kid it's a really tough school. They've got metal detectors and police there before they go in and when they come out. And they're at summer schools, so they're not the kids that have failed in the academic year. So there was another kid that would come out and just get stuff from his canteen and give it to us as we're going past it.
So you said there was about 52 days to complete the race, and what does that average? About 60 miles per day, which is around about a bit under 100 k's per day.
Yeah, so 3,100 miles is like a stone's throw short of 5,000 k's. So divide that by 52, it's just a bit under 100 k's.
So with your approach to the actual race, do you sort of try and aim for the minimum, or do you sort of try and just clock over the 100? Just try and notch over 100 a day, 100 k's a day, or how do you sort of?
So my first race, I knew you had to do 60 miles a day. You really go by laps. That's 111 laps is the average you've got to have. And my first day of my first race, it was fantastic. I ran further than I ever had before. I think I did 118 laps or something like that, maybe 106 k's, and felt great. And then went home, really pleased with myself, and woke up in the night needing to go into the bathroom and I could hardly walk. And I thought, oh man, I need to do this again tomorrow and the next day and the next day. And day two was the wheels started to fall apart, and I was already finishing the day well below the 111 average you need. I think I did 52 miles or about 90 k's, and the day after was worse again. So you get your average every day of what your mileage is, and you get a lap sheet in the morning that you can look at and be well aware when you're below what's required, and adds to a bit of the mental stress that's involved when you start analysing things and thinking you're going to make it, or when's this going to get better, when's things going to turn around, and things like that. And often a runner will stay in the race, even if they're not going to finish. They might know 35 days out that they're not going to make it. They'll try and just reset their goals and aim for maybe 3,000 miles or 2,700 miles. They just try and do the best you can, what circumstances are dealt for you.
Now, you said you finished this 4 times. The time that you didn't finish it, can you tell us about that? What was the reason for not finishing? Was it through injury or, can you tell us about that?
Yeah, so that was 2015, that was last year. So I went in with I'd had a bit of a niggle, just with a sore hip, and I did the training and then thought it was going to be okay, but it just got a bit worse as I went along. I made like day 13. I've done like 830 miles, or that was 1,200 k's. It just kept getting worse, and it was one of those things where you've got a niggle and you think about it too much. So I think it was a mixture of the injury and just dwelling on it too much mentally. So unfortunately, I didn't make it my last attempt. But, that's something to deal with and move on from. And, like this year, for instance, I always watch the race even when I'm not online. And there was Bulgarian guy. He was one of the runners. I think he made it 22 days, and then got some kind of injury, but he just said, I'm just going to walk as far as I can every day. And I called him a few times, and he was just so happy because he's trying his best. He's trying to overcome the physical hurdles that have cropped up, and he's staying out there and not giving up. So even when you don't make it, you can still make a lot of personal progress.
So what's it like when you're actually standing at the start line just before the gun goes off? G'day guys, Matt here. This podcast is a labour of love, and all episodes are researched, scheduled, edited, created and promoted in my spare time. Typically, after an episode has been recorded, it can take another 3 hours of post-production activities to get the final cut. If I'm providing you with value and you wish to support my vision of sharing these inspirational stories to the world, you can do so at borntokickarse.com and click on the Patreon banner. Your support will help to maintain the monthly podcast running costs and enable me to outsource repetitive tasks so I can bring you even more kick-ass episodes. Once again, if you want to support me in producing this podcast, head over to borntokickarse.com and click on the Patreon banner. You can't miss it. And now back to the rest of the show. What are you sort of feeling? Have you just sort of resigned yourself that for the next month and a half, like if you make it a month and a half, or, the next sort of 50 odd days, how do you sort of deal with that mentally, the Mount Everest in front of you?
Yeah, there's always a mixture of nerves and trepidation, but you're also, part of you wants to get started because it's not just that 53 days, you've been preparing for it a couple of months in advance, and it's all consuming with that. So part of you wants to begin and start chipping away at the distance. I think but it's definitely got a terrifying aspect as well. You've got a huge distance to cover, and you haven't even made a step yet towards your goals. And if you've done that, it's like anything, if you've done the preparation, you've done the hard work and the training, you can have confidence in yourself that have faith in yourself that you can make it.
Do you ever have those rough times where you sort of start tuning into, it's every step is one step less, it's one step less?
Yeah. You have different goals in the race, and one of my favourites, like any race, is halfway. It's like it's the turnaround point, and downhill from there. But there's other little goals. You try and set like hourly goals and daily goals and things like that, but you can't think about it too much. You just got to. One of the ways Tricia encourages us to run is to not be too mental about things. Run like more in your heart, spontaneously, like a child plays around in a garden, and that way you don't think about, it's the same thing I'm doing again and again today. It's the same things I'm looking at. You're trying to always see something new or something beautiful, like a bird that's just built its nest, or a flower that's just sprung up there, it's a weed, or the sky above you, or something like that. So that way you can stay. I think the secret to the race is staying happy, really. If you're happy, you run better, the world's a better place around you, and you can have a really good time despite the physical difficulties. You definitely go through rough patches when you're depressed and you're down and out, and you're just dwelling on your injuries and so forth too much, but you have to really fight your way out of them and try and run happily again.
Do you use any mantras, particularly, as the sort of weeks start to pass by? Do you actively use any particular mantras that you that you use to assist the stilling of your mind?
Yeah, sometimes you just run with your breath, like never give up, or things like that, or you can chant even just gratitude as you're running around. Yeah, so there's lots of different things. You can sing uplifting songs to yourself, or you listen to kind of uplifting music when you can. Sometimes you've got to listen to something a bit harder. You try and I use meditation, all sorts of meditation techniques when I'm out there to keep you going and inspired.
Yeah, I know. On some of the runs I've done, I sort of listen to music occasionally, and a few times I've sort of loaded in to my iPod. Even Tibet, the Tibetan Buddhist monks, when they're chanting, a few times I've just put that on and zoned out for a couple hours. I just sort of mix it up a bit, and I've sort of done stuff like that. And I haven't done this one yet. The Hare Krishna mantra.
Yeah,
I'm not a religious person, but I'm definitely spiritual, and I'm open to these mantras just to recenter yourself and stop your mind from jumping around.
Yeah, that's excellent. That's what I do as well. There's a lot of running songs, 3 to moderate. Sometimes you get them bouncing around in your head. They're really dynamic and keep you going as well. So yeah, use it all the time. Sometimes different musical groups would come to the course and play as well. So it's helpful. But mantra is definitely helpful when you're running.
Each lap that you do, is there like a counter of some sort? Like, are you wearing like a race number where you can sort of see your number and how many laps you've done? Is there, how do they sort of monitor how many laps that you've done?
Yeah, so because it is an official race, that has to be a measured marshal course with a counter, which is one of the reasons they chose a loop. They just measure 800, I think it's 883 metres actually. They just measure that distance, and they've got their certified course. And then there's a team of volunteers that count, set up the camp, bring food to the runners. So there's always a counter there, and they'll always yell out your laps as you go past, like Grahak, 110 laps Grahak, and then next 111 laps Grahak. So that way you know how you're going.
Tell us about your shoes. How many pairs of shoes do you go through on this race? Like just under 5,000 kilometres worth of running.
Yeah, so I go through about 15 pairs. I'm a bit heavy on my feet, so it lasts about 3-4 days. And you wear through a lot. You cut out with this race. A lot of the runners cut out the toe box a little bit to give a bit of ventilation. And you cut the tongue down a tiny bit and a bit off the heel, so you don't get too much rubbing, unnecessary rubbing. Eventually, the heels wear, or mine, but anyway, the heels wear out onto the white kind of sponge, that's on the running shoes, and once it hits that, you really start to lean and wear through them really quickly. But then some runners, I think Ashrihan also, he's the Finnish runner, he's got the world record. He's really light and fleet-footed, and he goes through seven pairs. It's one of the big expenses is the shoes.
So with the 15 pairs that you go through, are they brand new shoes, or have you sort of already broken them in?
No, they're brand new. The first pair is maybe broken in, that's it.
With the actual laps that you do you go clockwise for a period, and then do you sort of go anti-clockwise? Do they sort of mix it up like that?
They change it every other day, so you run in one direction one day and the morning.
So you run from 6 a.m. to midnight every day for 50 odd days. So that's 18 hours of running per day. Now I need to find out with the sleep, the non-running part of the day. So you've got 6 hours of recovery from midnight to 6 a.m. the next morning. Where do you sleep?
So usually in local accommodation, that's pretty near the course, maybe 23 k's. So that's provided by the organisers. So you retire back to, it's kind of one of the nice things again about a block is that you can stay in the same bed every night. So I usually rode home every night. It was just nice doing some different movement in your legs, and then you get home and you shower and tend to your feet and look after yourself a little bit, crash out or try to.
So by the time like midnight hits, and then you've stopped running for the day, and then you sort of pack up your gear and have some food and nutrition and stuff, and then by the time you get back to the accommodation and have a shower and get changed and stuff like that, how much have you eaten into that 6 hour window? Do you sort of crash at about 2 a.m. or 1:30 or?
Personally, I'd really be time efficient, so I'd make sure that I'd get some food. I'd eat it while I was on the bike, and I'd get home, and it's easy to just like sit down and just kind of because you just shattered. It's easy to sit down and half fall asleep and not get anything done, and then you haven't really rested, but you haven't really got ready for bed. So I used to get home and just be pretty efficient. I'd usually be in bed before 1. That was how I worked. But then there's some guys who do, I don't know how they do it, they do vlogs and whatnot. Some not get to bed till 1:30, 2 o'clock. Some guys would get woken up by someone in the house. They'd be in the kitchen with the table.
So let's just say you on average, let's say you get to bed at 1 a.m. You'd probably need to what time do you get up? Because like you have to start at 6 a.m. the next day. Do you get up at 5 or?
5, I think it's I worked out for the minute, it was like 5:27, I think.
5:27, all right. So you could you're averaging about 4.5 hours sleep per night.
Yeah.
Do you have any?
I'm getting too much sleep.
Yep. How do you, as the race progresses, when your head hits the pillow that night, is your mind still going around that track?
Yeah, I had real problems with sleeping. It's really hard for myself to switch off. Just a dream I was still running around the course, and I dreamed the lap counters were missing a lap. A dream I had a cramp, and then I'd wake up and I was cramping. So it was really hard to switch off and get a decent sleep. We did in the day. What I'd do is I'd take a 15-minute nana nap at about 2 p.m. and I found that sleep really nice, really refreshing, more so than my 5 hours, whatever it was. So that sleep at home was really hard for me. The other guys were fine, I think, but it was just hard to sleep. It's hard to switch off.
But as the race progresses, does your mind still, after a while, when you're crashing at night?
Yeah, I still had it. The thing that does get easier is the pain at night diminishes as your body adjusts and gets stronger. At first, the only way you can sleep is with your legs up on a box. So you have your calves resting on the top of the box and your hammies up the side of the box. So imagine that your legs are kind of bent. So that's how you sleep, because your legs and your hips are just so sore. But then as the race progresses, you gradually go to a smaller box, and then you can just have a pillow under your legs, and everything, all these swelling and problems diminish over time. It's a really good thing. It shows that the body can get stronger and doing things. So that got less the painful side of the sleep. For me, for some reason, I just couldn't stop dreaming about the race.
It's hard to imagine, when you sort of close your eyes, that just the relentless going around that block, that'd be just an ongoing. It's almost like mind torture.
Yeah. Some guys will do different things. I've watched some child children's cartoons or something, but it's pretty heavy. I just wanted to lie down, and maybe that vlogging, maybe that helped those guys get off of it.
And what about nutrition? Whereabouts do you eat? Is there just like like a big sort of aid station at the start-finish line type thing, or?
Yeah, so there's a team of cooks, all volunteers. They do it as a form of service, again incorporating the spiritual side of things. So all of them get paid. They just give up their time to help serve the runners and get us to the end. And they work relentlessly. They're often as tired as the runners at the end of the race. They bring down food five times a day, so you get. I'd usually start with a bit of yoga before I even began running. Then they bring down a bit of porridge. It's all in. I put it all in cups so you can carry it around and just eat while you're on the run. There's a couple of rises on the course where you can walk up those and get a few mouthfuls in. Then they bring down a full cooked breakfast. You can have eggs, mashed potato, a couple of pancakes, some toast. And then there's morning tea, and then lunch can be like pastas, quiches, noodles, stir-fried dishes. And there's afternoon tea, which is something guilty, like chocolate brownies, whatever they've made. Dinner, which is always really delicious. It's all vegetarian food. And there's a bit of supper as well, like pizza or something like that. So there's food. You need to eat a lot of food to keep the calorie count up, which is difficult to start with because it's hot. You don't feel like really eating. Digestion is playing up, but as I said, your body does get used to it, and you get really hungry, even if you just eating something recently.
Now, have you ever had an out-of-body experience on this race that you can recall?
I've had really nice meditations during this race.
Yeah, can you tell us about that? What were you feeling, and sort of how far into the race were you when you had these experiences?
You're always trying to, because it's a race where you're incorporating your inner life with the outer run, you're always trying to have nice moments or meditate. So you're trying to identify with power we've got within, the energy within, or you're trying to identify with different qualities like love or gratitude. I remember the race I ran in 2012, it was the one I won. I remember one night was just having the nicest meditation. It was really late at night. There was no traffic, no people around. It was really peaceful, and I felt, even though I'd done well over 100. I think usually in that race where I won, I was doing 115 k's a day. But I'd done well over 100 k's, and I just had so much energy. I felt really fresh, and it just started a fun run. It was some of the best meditation, and kept running, and And in the end, I got a bit frightened. I thought, how am I going to get to sleep tonight and feeling like this? And I went home and freshened up, and I still had that meditation early nights, feeling within. And I usually meditate just for a few moments before I go to bed. And I just felt so blissful, if you like. And I still was a bit worried, and I felt like I've got to go to bed. And the next day was all gone back to normal. But that was one particular.
So, like, at the end of these races, is it difficult to sort of come back from, running 50 days around a block, meditating, doing running meditation, and then coming back into society, you come back to Perth, you come back to sort of civilization. How difficult's that? Is it difficult at all?
Yeah, it is difficult. You really, after you finished and you got there, you just bask in, you feel fantastic. It's indescribable. It's something you've earned and you can't pay for. You just feel all these really good qualities just coursing through you, like love and gratitude, and you're so happy because you've achieved what you aim to do, and that definitely hangs around for a while. But then after a period of, I usually stay in New York, or I don't rush home or anything like that. But some guys really do struggle. There's a runner from Wales who would always find it really mentally difficult. It's like you come back to Earth. In the race, you don't have to worry about anything. Someone does your washing, someone cooks for you, and you're just running. And afterwards, you have to realise how I've got to back to your regular life. This Welsh running is to become like a hermit. I think you take off and go camping and things. So everyone manages it in a way. A lot of guys like going to the beach. It's kind of fun. You can just swing with the other runners to the beach. Wash up all the grime and wash away all the skin problems you might have in the ocean. That's really nice.
Is there a certain point in the race where your ego starts to dissolve? Just disappear?
Yeah, in the run you have to be, the run humbles you, I think, in yourself. And no matter, there's been some really good runners line up at the start and just allow them to smash this. And then you can do that for a week or so, but then the finish is just so far away that it kind of conquers you that way, the race, and it humbles you in that sense that you have to, if you start thinking about the finish, the mind can't cope with it. If you start thinking you've got 4,000 days to go, or even if you start thinking you're just running around a block, it's like you're doomed for a bad day, like you're doomed to be depressed. So you have to really, as I said before, just stay in your heart, not analyse every little lap, and really just try and be cheerful. That's the way to finish. But if you do start thinking about the bigger picture or how far you've got to go, it's very easy for self-doubt to creep in, and that's when a lot of problems start, I think.
So do you have any particular tips to return or stay present in the now? Instead of like, how your mind's always sort of it's basically just thinking of stuff, jumping around. What sort of tips do you have or techniques that you have that you use yourself to stay grounded in the present moment?
Well, I definitely encourage people to just attend meditation classes. They're always free by the Street Moy group, and there's plenty of others that are as well. I think it's important to formally practice and just learn some technique that gels with yourself. It might be visualizing, it might be the mantra, it might be breathing techniques can be very helpful in running because it is so rhythmical and regular. the main thing is to realize, I think, with meditation is that the mind quite often is the thing that hinders you. It starts thinking about problems and worries and things like that. But there's a deeper part of us that can, when you learn to silence that can give you a lot of fulfillment, a lot of power, inner strength. It's where all those good qualities that we have come from. So I think learning to access that part of ourselves is really important, not just, of course, in running, but in our regular lives as well. When you can do that, you can really achieve anything, and I think the world will become a better place as well. If we can expand our hearts and really feel like you're part of a bigger picture or a big family, if you like, and everyone's brothers and sisters, and we're all kind of running towards the same goal. And you can be more in the heart. It's a really beneficial thing for yourself and the world around you.
And what's it like when you finish? Where are you mentally? Or I guess, where are you spiritually when you finish? Are you just completely clear and just devoid of any ego, and have you transcended yourself, when you cross the finish line?
Yeah, when you cross the finish line, it's even a day or 2 or 3 out, and you know you're going to make it. You just you're so happy, and it's, as I said before, it's kind of indescribable how happy you are. But you just soak it all in, and when you finish, there's usually a big crowd that gathers, and there's this victory song that's sung by the choir that comes down, and it's a really joyful occasion. I think everybody who watches it, just as I did when I first watched the thing, you kind of pick up on the feeling of the achievement that people. I think it's like when you watch the Olympics and you watch someone do something great, and you can identify with that. And I think the crowd does. The crowd does too when they come down and watch people finish. They just soak up the tremendous joy you feel across the line. It's something that even just thinking about finishing, you can still relive that special moment and how you felt, and it's really it's kind of moving thinking about it, which is nice.
I don't think you'd ever come down from that, would you? Like, you've run 5,000 kilometres, for 50 odd days, and, the physical suffering that you've gone through and the mental suffering and, everything in between that you've had to manage with sleep deprivation and dehydration and everything that you've had to endure. When you cross the finish line, the victory it's a permanent victory over yourself. Do you find you never come down from that?
Yeah, you do. Like in the race, when you've finished, you're a different person, if you like, because you have overcome so many hurdles, and you've just kept going, and makes you realise that you can really achieve anything if you put your heart and soul into it. So I think, in a way, you learn so much and you grow as an individual so much that it's not, progress is something you can you always try and go forwards, and with the running you're running forwards in terms of your personal progress, and nothing to take away from that. I think you're slowly you do come back to earth after after you finish it. Take a few weeks, but a few months. But then it comes around for the next year's race and we start again.
So do you think there's a limit to the human spirit at all?
No, I don't. Tristan always said that there's nothing that's really impossible when we use our determination. Yeah, I don't think, I think there's so much resilience within us and inner strength that we can overcome a lot and do a lot with that.
Now, just on success, how do you define success?
Yeah, I was reading an aphorism by Sri Cunningham. He says that success is progress, really. So if you're making personal progress, and I think that's a success. And I also think it's the way I think success when despite failure or despite achievement, you can still be happy with what you've done. I think as long as we're trying our best and never giving up and maybe getting back up after you've had a fall, and persevering and using your determination, even if you don't make your ultimate goal, you've been successful, and then you can always try again tomorrow.
Just on advice, if there's a listener out there that's contemplating wanting to toe the starting line of the 3,100 mile Self-Transcendence race, if there's someone out there that's contemplating wanting to do that, is there any advice you could give them?
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people around the world who are capable of doing this race. And I think it's important to just start your running. And I just went from the 75k straight up to the 3,100 miles. I think I had the special blessings, if you like, from a spiritual teacher. I think anybody can really do that, but I think it's best to go through the usual avenues, which is you start with your marathons, and then even just go for a run the next day, even though you might not feel like it, and then a bit later down the track try an ultra. There's a lot of 12 and 24-hour races around, and I think training for things like that really help you in the multi-day field. And then the other really good thing to do is to crew for someone who's doing a multi-day race, and you kind of see the ups and downs that they go through and what's involved. And I see it a lot in the 3,100 mile races. Some of the helpers get so inspired that they'll line up at the start line a couple of years later. And I think it's because they've gained a lot of knowledge and just crewing for people. So I think that's a really good thing to do before you embark on a personal challenge. Just become familiar, anything, just become familiar with what's involved, and you'll learn a lot and things like that.
Do you think you'll ever go back?
Yeah, I think it's still in me to do another one. I'd like to try a few different things. Like I've never done an Ironman. I'd like to do one of those, and I'm hopeless on a bike. I'd like to get better at cycling. I've got a few challenges ahead. I think I'll probably do the 6-day or the 10-day in New York before I go back, just to check myself out a bit. And,
do some speed work and do a 6-dayer or a 10-dayer.
Yeah, one of those shorter events.
Yeah. Is the 6 and the 10-day one on the same course?
Yeah, it's on the same. It's not. No, it's on a different course from the 3,100 mile one. Towards Ireland in New York. It's pretty amazing to go and see that. There's like a little mini city that gets set up. Again, it's the same idea with that race, as people are trying to transcend themselves, compete against themselves, and go as far as they can. And there's, again, a team of cooks that look after everyone.
Have you ever broken out into tears And I don't mean tears through pain, but tears through joy. You know, like you might have been 3 weeks or a month into it, and you know you're just running along, and everything dissolves, and you're immersed in like a higher level of consciousness. Have you ever sort of experienced that, where you just sort of spontaneously start crying because you're so happy? And
yeah, I had both. Had the tears, the pain tears, and the much nicer ones are when you have speaking of choice about gratitude tears. Sometimes you can have that experience where you just got tears of gratitude. It's really nice. Really nice. Have you had that before?
Yeah, I have. Just like I remember doing like a 50K beach run just in training, just along the beach, and you know, like on a Saturday morning, just went for like a long run, and yeah, I think it was just like the sound of the ocean, the music of the ocean, sort of just washing away all the crap in your mind. And you know, when your mind sort of gets washed away, or your ego sort of goes, you really feel and see, I guess, the real or the true beauty in everything. And yeah, sometimes that I have experienced that, and it is quite it's quite a deep feeling that you have, and it's not often that you have it. It's pretty good.
Yeah, it's nice. Things stir you when you're running. You know, when you're going through these. I guess you're just forced to go a bit deeper. Yeah, sometimes things will stir you. Like if you're in the 3,100 mile race, you might be in a bad mood, and then you come around into the playground and you see a kid really smiling and happy. It just kind of stirs something nice. You feel that happiness and you feel it. You might, the sky, the sunrise, things like that. So.
Yeah, no, it's been fascinating talking with you, and you know, getting an insight into this race, this 3,100 mile race. It's quite incredible. Whereabouts can people find you online, and you know, follow you into the future? You know, if you're going to do another one, you know, maybe people can support you and follow your progress and your training and stuff like that. Whereabouts can people find you?
So I've got a website. It's grahakcunningham.com. I'm on LinkedIn as well. People, it's not worth following the race every year. I think it's 3,100.ws, what's easy to search anyway. So it's always, just put an email if you have any questions. I've been on the website on the race and some more training tips and things. Well, I did write a book a few years ago as well. People can look at that. It's got a lot about nutrition and the event and some of the other characters that do the run. There's some really amazing people that do it. And definitely age is no barrier. There's a 56-year-old lady broke the record last year. There's a lot on my website.
Yeah, so your book's called Running Beyond the Marathon, Insights into the Longest Foot Race in the World. I'll put a link to all the links and to this book as well in the show notes. I noticed as well, I was going through the results just on Wikipedia, and I think there was another person, I think it was a female, her surname was also Cunningham. Was she a relation to you?
Oh, that's Grahak Cunningham. She's an amazing runner. She's won that 6-day race so many times. I think she has the women's world record for 6 days. She hasn't done the 3,100, though she visits a lot, which is nice. She's got a lot of advice. But she's a super runner that not many Australians have heard about. I should be really proud of Grahak. She's amazing. She's won that 6-day race so many times. And now she's in her 50s, mid-50s, and she's still going pretty strong. I think she had a few injuries last year. But apart from that, she hasn't had much at all. Yes, that's the pilot coming up here. No relation.
Yeah, well, thanks again for your time. It's been a great chat, and thanks again for coming on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cheers.
See you, Matt. Thanks a lot.
You've just been listening to the Born to Kick Arse podcast at borntokickarse.com. If you liked what you heard and want more, please subscribe on iTunes. Give a 5-star rating and a Kick Arse review. This really helps to boost our presence and continues to allow us to introduce you to the most fascinating people on the planet. Welcome aboard and catch you next time.